The stars stretched out across the vastness of space, a shimmering sea of distant lights, and empty voids. Earth had always been just one planet among many, but to those who watched it had grown significant, a place of rapid growth and extraordinary potential. Then one day it went silent. The signals that once connected Earth to the stars suddenly stopped. No radio waves, no satellites, no sign of communication. It was as if the planet had vanished from the universe, and for the first time in a long while something felt off. In the Galactic Council chamber, a place of unimaginable size and grandeur, representatives of countless species from different corners of the galaxy stood in tense silence, their eyes focused on Earth, a planet they had long dismissed as primitive. Now it was gone without a trace. Nothing could be seen or heard from the once bustling world. The fixer of fierce and xenophobic species shifted uneasily, their claws tapping against the cold stone floor. They had long feared what humanity might become, and now that fear seemed to be justified. They exchanged glances, murmuring among themselves, while the Jirek, a race older than most in the galaxy, remained quiet, their eyes cold and calculating. The silence spoke volumes, their minds already racing to consider the possibilities. High above Earth, the flagship Vanguard carried Commander Jalen Reese and her team into the unknown. Reese stood at the bridge, looking out into the blackness of space, her expression hard, her mind racing with 100 questions. She had been part of Earth's military for years, trained for any situation. But this was different. This wasn't just another routine mission. This was something else, something much larger than she or anyone else could have anticipated. The silence from Earth wasn't just strange, it was terrifying. Reese paced back and forth, her boots clicking softly on the cold metal of the deck. She ran a hand through her short-cropped hair, her mind sorting through the data they had received. No transmissions, no signs of life, no movement from Earth or its fleet. The only thing that had been detected was an odd energy pulse emanating from the planet itself, but that had been recorded weeks before Earth fell silent. "Commander, what do you make of it?" her second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara, asked, stepping into view. She too was staring at the glowing screen ahead of them, filled with reports and readings, all pointing to the same unsettling truth. "I don't know, Mara, but I have a feeling we're not going to like what we find," Reese replied, her voice low but determined. Her gut told her that Earth had not simply gone dark by accident. There was something out there, something powerful that had chosen to make Earth disappear. Their mission was clear: investigate Earth's disappearance and find out what happened. But every moment that passed without any answers only deepened the dread that had begun to settle in Reese's chest. She had always trusted her instincts, and right now they were screaming that something ancient was stirring, something far beyond their understanding. "Plot a course to Earth's last known location," Reese ordered, her tone firm. The crew immediately got to work plotting their course as the ship's engines hummed with quiet power, and the stars outside shifted into a blur of light as they sped toward the unknown. Every breath Reese took seemed to grow heavier as the distance between the Vanguard and Earth shrank, the silence of space pressing in around them. It felt like the calm before a storm, like the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen, and Reese had the sinking feeling that when it did, it would change everything. The silence was suffocating as the Vanguard entered the outskirts of the solar system. The stars beyond the cockpit windows stretched on like distant jewels, scattered across the black abyss. But Earth was absent, no signs of life. No orbiting satellites, no traffic of ships, not even a single glowing speck of light. In the distance, the planet that had once teemed with activity was now nothing more than a hollow, dark sphere. Reese stood at the helm, her jaw clenched tightly. She had prepared for this moment, but seeing Earth's emptiness with her own eyes was different. Her hands gripped the armrests of her command chair as her eyes searched the void for something, anything to suggest the planet's fate. Her mind raced through countless possibilities, but none of them made sense. "Commander, the data's coming in," Lieutenant Mara's voice cut through the stillness of the bridge, her fingers flying over the control panel beside her. "We're receiving an energy pulse from Earth's surface, but it's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's fluctuating." Reese's heart skipped a beat. "Can you triangulate its origin?" "Not exactly," Mara replied, shaking her head. It's coming from all over the surface in waves. Each pulse is irregular and impossible to pinpoint. It's almost as if Earth itself is alive. The words hung in the air thick with dread. Reese's gaze hardened as she looked down at the screen showing the pulses of energy emanating from Earth like ripples on the surface of a dark lake. No pattern, no rhythm, just chaotic energy. "We need to get closer," Reese ordered, her voice steady, but her mind was racing with fear. "Prep the landing craft. We'll investigate firsthand." As the Vanguard descended toward Earth's atmosphere, the tension on the bridge was palpable. The crew's movements slow and deliberate, their eyes glued to the screens showing Earth's eerie glow in the distance. The closer they got, the more unsettling it became. The planet's surface shimmered with a strange luminescence, as if a blanket of energy was encasing it like a shield. "We're entering the atmosphere," Mara's voice broke the silence again, as the Vanguard shuddered slightly from the turbulence, adjusting course to land. Reese nodded and watched as the planet loomed ever larger before them. Her stomach twisted as she realized how alone they were out here. No backup, no reinforcements, just their small crew against whatever force had driven Earth into this silence. The landing craft separated from the Vanguard and glided down through the thick atmosphere, the once familiar blue skies now shrouded in a dark haze. The surface of Earth came into view, and it was nothing like Reese had expected. The cities were gone. Entire regions of land were reduced to dust. The crumbled remains of skyscrapers dotted the landscape like the bones of a long-dead giant. Strange metallic structures had replaced the familiar landscape, but it was more than just ruins. There was an unnatural order to the devastation. "What happened here?" Mara whispered from beside her, her voice barely audible. Reese didn't answer as she watched the scene unfold before her. The landing craft set down gently on the cracked Earth, its engines humming softly. The team disembarked cautiously, weapons at the ready, their boots crunching against the barren ground. The air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. "We're not alone," Reese muttered as she scanned the horizon, her instincts screaming that they were being watched. The energy pulses from earlier had intensified now, their frequencies almost a physical presence in the air around them. Something ancient, something terrifying was waiting, and it wasn't going to let them leave without a fight. The landing was uneventful, but the silence of Earth felt suffocating. Reese and her team stepped out into the barren wasteland, their boots crunching on the cracked ashen ground. The air was thick and charged, making every breath feel unnatural, as though the planet itself was holding its breath. The energy pulses were growing stronger, more erratic, almost alive. Reese tightened her grip on her weapon and motioned for the team to advance. "We need to get to the source of that energy," she ordered, her voice steady despite the unease gnawing at her. "Stay sharp." The team moved cautiously through the desolate landscape, their eyes scanning the horizon. The sky above was a strange, oppressive gray, and the distant ruins of cities were nothing more than shattered skeletons of what they once were. Towering structures twisted and warped, as if the very fabric of reality had been distorted by an unseen force. Suddenly, a loud crack split the air, followed by a low hum, a deep guttural sound that resonated through the ground beneath their feet. The energy pulses became more intense, rippling outward, almost as if something was awakening. Reese held up her hand, signaling for the team to stop. "What was that?" Mara whispered, her eyes wide. "Stay quiet," Reese replied, her voice barely a breath. "We're not alone." Before they could react, a massive shape appeared in the sky, a colossal dark craft, gliding silently through the air. It was like nothing they had ever seen before, its form angular and smooth, glowing with an eerie red light. The ship descended with unnatural precision, coming to a halt above the ruined city. The air hummed with a strange energy as it hovered, and the team instinctively raised their weapons. Reese's heart pounded in her chest as the truth settled in. She had seen this before, or rather, heard of it. Old, fragmented legends from humanity's long-lost history. Stories passed down in hushed tones about an ancient race of conquerors who had vanished long before Earth's rise to prominence. The Gyrak. "They're here," Reese muttered under her breath, as the realization struck her like a physical blow. The Gyrek. The Gyrek were an ancient species, their empire predating most galactic civilizations. They had been ruthless conquerors, leaving nothing but ruin in their wake. Earth had barely survived their first encounter centuries ago, but the war had been lost to history. The Gyrek were believed to be gone, their empire shattered, their name erased from memory. But now, their ships were descending upon Earth once again. The massive craft lowered to the ground, its doors opening with an ominous hiss. From within emerged figures, tall, menacing, and clad in dark alien armor. Their skin was like obsidian, smooth and glossy, their eyes glowing with an unsettling light. These beings were not human, and they exuded an aura of ancient power and cold, calculating intelligence. A figure at the front of the group stepped forward, its voice booming in a language Reese didn't understand. The tone was commanding, ancient, and full of malice. But there was no mistaking the intent. The Gyrek had returned, and they had come for Earth. Reese's hand hovered over her weapon as the Gyrek approached. She felt the weight of their presence, a force that seemed to distort the very air around them. Her mind raced. The Earth she had known was gone, replaced by a twisted alien version of reality. And the Gyrek were the cause. "We found them," Mara said quietly, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and awe. "But why? Why now?" Reese's gaze hardened. "Because they've always been here, watching, waiting." She took a deep breath, her mind focused, her resolve steeling. "And we're not going to let them take Earth without a fight." As the Gyrek closed in, Reese realized with chilling clarity that this was no longer just a mission to investigate the silence. This was a fight for survival, a fight to save humanity from an ancient enemy that had underestimated Earth's true potential. Reese's pulse quickened as the Gyrek forces advanced, their footsteps slow and deliberate, each one shaking the ground beneath her boots. The sheer presence of the alien invaders made the air feel thick, like it was charged with electricity, and the once muted energy pulses around Earth seemed to respond, intensifying as the Gyrek drew nearer. Reese's mind raced. These were no ordinary invaders. The Gyrek were a force unlike anything Earth had ever faced, and they had been here before. But what if Earth had already prepared for this? The thought hit Reese like a bolt of lightning. The secret buried deep within humanity's past, hidden away for centuries, suddenly began to feel more like a lifeline. She'd heard whispers of it, of course, stories, myths, warnings from the old explorers, but she'd never fully believed them. Not until now. Not until this moment. "Commander," Mara whispered, her voice tight with fear. "What are we up against? How do we fight these things?" Reese's gaze hardened as she looked over the advancing Gyrek forces. The truth was, they had no idea how to defeat the Gyrek, not directly. But they might not have to. "We're not fighting them head-on, Mara," Reese said, her voice grim but determined. "We're fighting them with something they don't understand." Turning quickly, Reese motioned for her team to follow as she made her way toward the ruins of a nearby building. The city, or what was left of it, looked like a graveyard of shattered glass and twisted steel. It was a testament to the destructive power of the Gyrek, but also a clue, she believed. They had to find the Echo Protocol. If humanity had built it in secret to defend against the Gyrek, then it was the key to Earth's survival. The energy pulses resonated through the ground with every step they took. They were getting closer. Reese could feel the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end, an overwhelming sense of urgency flooding her thoughts. The Gyrek were not just here to conquer. They were here to ensure that humanity never rose again. If the Echo Protocol still existed, it could give them the edge they desperately needed. "I've been thinking about something," Lieutenant Mara said suddenly, her voice tight with realization. "What if the Gyrek knew Earth was preparing for them? What if they caused the silence, forced us into hiding somehow?" Reese nodded slowly. It made sense. The Gyrek would have no tolerance for anything that could challenge their dominance. The thought that they could have caused the silence themselves, to stop Earth from activating the weapon, struck Reese like a punch to the gut. The Xerac were not just invaders. They were predators, and Earth had become their next target. The team reached the heart of the ruined structure, and there, hidden in the remains of a buried chamber, they found it. The entrance to a massive underground facility. A faint, almost imperceptible hum echoed from below. The pulse, Reese realized, was stronger here. "We found it," Reese breathed, feeling a surge of hope for the first time since the invasion began. She felt it in her bones, the power humanity had once hidden away. "Activate the system," Reese ordered, her voice steady. "It's time to unleash the one thing the Xerac never expected." Her team set to work immediately, fingers flying over consoles and ancient controls, navigating technology that hadn't been touched in centuries. The chamber seemed to come alive as systems powered up, and the hum of the Echo protocol filled the air. It was ancient and yet strangely familiar, a piece of Earth's lost history that had been forged in the fire of a forgotten war. The walls around them began to glow with a strange, pulsing light. The Xerac had no idea what they were about to face. "Commander," Mara said, her voice full of awe, it's more than a weapon. It's like it's alive." Reese smiled grimly. "Humanity's greatest weapon is not our technology or our strength. It's our will to survive." With a final command, Reese activated the Echo protocol. The ground beneath their feet trembled as the ancient weapon powered to life, and somewhere far above, the Xerac fleet began to falter. The ground shook with the power of the Echo protocol. The ancient system hummed, its energy rippling outward like an invisible wave, disrupting the atmosphere around Earth. The once stable power of the Xerac fleet wavered. Reese could feel it, a sharp electric tremor in the air, as if the very fabric of reality had been cracked open. The Xerac, so certain in their dominance, were now being forced to reckon with something they had never anticipated. The Xerac fleet had started to lose their coordination. Ships began to falter in the sky, their movements sluggish and erratic. For a moment, there was a collective stillness. The force of the Echo protocol was overwhelming, but it wasn't enough to completely neutralize the threat. Not yet. Reese knew the real battle was only just beginning. She had activated the weapon, but its full impact would take time to unfold. "We've got incoming." Mara's voice broke through Reese's thoughts. Her eyes were glued to the monitors, watching the Xerac ships struggle against the growing energy pulse. The rest of their fleet is regrouping. They're not retreating. They're adapting. The implications were clear. The Xerac weren't simply going to fall apart. They were reorganizing, re-establishing control. Their ships were massive, built for conquest and war, and they weren't about to be taken down easily. What they lacked in technological edge, they made up for with sheer resilience. It would take more than just the Echo protocol to break their will. Reese's mind raced, calculating their options. The Echo protocol had crippled the Xerac's ability to communicate and navigate their ships, but it hadn't neutralized their firepower. She glanced over at the team, each of them hardened by the desperation of the moment. They were ready. "Prepare for combat," Reese said, her voice commanding. "We need to take down their command ship. It's their weakest link right now. If we can disrupt their leadership, the rest of the fleet will collapse." Mara nodded, already coordinating the team. "We've got a window, but it won't last long. The Xerac are making adjustments. They'll be back at full capacity soon." Reese turned to the others. "We'll go in fast and hit them hard. No hesitation. This is our only shot." The team geared up quickly, strapping on weapons and rechecking their communication systems. The landing craft was still functional, and they had a direct line to the Xerac command ship hovering above the ruins of the city. As they boarded, Reese felt the weight of their mission sink in. If they failed, Earth would fall, completely, irrevocably. There was no turning back now. As the landing craft lifted off, the shattered landscape below seemed to reflect their own desperation. Earth, once a thriving world full of life, was now a battlefront, a place where survival was the only objective. The crew was silent, each of them steeling themselves for the battle ahead. Rhys could see the glint of determination in their eyes, but there was no denying the fear. They were up against an enemy that had once crushed entire civilizations, and the only thing they had on their side was the will to fight. The landing craft sliced through the atmosphere, closing in on the Gyrek command ship. It was a massive structure, angular and menacing, its dark surface scarred by battle. The Gyrek had already begun to regroup, the last of their ships rallying around their flagship in a desperate attempt to reclaim control. "We're almost there," Mara said, her voice tight. "Brace yourselves." The command ship loomed large in the viewport, its terrifying presence a stark reminder of the Gyrek's brutal power. The Echo Protocol had weakened their coordination, but it hadn't broken them. The battle would be fierce. Rhys's fingers tightened around her weapon. She wasn't about to let Earth fall, not without a fight. "On my mark," Rhys said, her voice unwavering. "We take them down together. For Earth." The landing craft tore through the atmosphere, the thick air buffeting its hull as the Gyrek command ship loomed ever larger in the distance. Rhys's grip tightened on the controls, her heart pounding in time with the steady thrum of the ship's engines. The mission was clear: destroy the Gyrek flagship, and the rest of their fleet would collapse. But Rhys knew this wouldn't be easy. They were going up against the full might of the Gyrek military, and there was no margin for error. "Ready up," Mara shouted over the comms, her voice sharp as she checked the weapon systems. "We've only got one shot at this." Rhys nodded, her eyes fixed on the viewport, watching as the command ship's massive form drew closer. Its dark, jagged edges glowed with faint red light, the ship almost seeming to pulse with malevolent energy. Every inch of it screamed power, the Gyrek's brutal legacy forged into its cold, metallic surface. But beneath that exterior, Rhys knew there was a vulnerability, a crack in their armor, a weakness they could exploit. As the landing craft neared the flagship, the Gyrek began to react. Dozens of smaller ships erupted from the command vessel, their engines roaring as they swarmed like hornets defending their nest. They were faster, more agile, but Rhys's eyes narrowed in determination. They had to push through. "Focus fire on the enemy ships," Rhys barked, the command coming out with the certainty of years of military training. The craft's weapon systems flared to life, unleashing volleys of laser fire that streaked across the blackened sky. The smaller Gyrek ships dodged and retaliated, but the landing craft was well armored, and Rhys's team was skilled. The smaller ships fell one by one, their sparks lighting up the sky like distant fireworks. "Get us closer," Rhys ordered, her voice steely. "We need to hit that command ship now." Mara worked quickly, the landing craft's weapon systems tracking and targeting the flagship's weak points, energy conduits exposed on the ship's underside. With a single focused burst, the weapon's energy cascaded through the hull of the Gyrek ship. The flagship shuddered as the blast connected, the ship's engines flickering erratically. "We've got their attention," Mara said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Rhys's pulse quickened as the Gyrek flagship retaliated, launching countermeasures that streaked through the air. Explosions rocked the ship, but Rhys's focus never wavered. They were in the heart of the storm now, and there was no turning back. "We're making our approach," Rhys said, her voice calm but resolute. "Brace for impact." The landing craft slammed into the belly of the Gyrek command ship, its hull screeching as it scraped against the flagship's jagged surface. The craft shuddered violently, but it held together, and the team scrambled out, weapons raised. The battlefield before them was chaos. The Gyrek had already begun mobilizing troops, massive, armored warriors emerging from the depths of the flagship's hull, their eyes glowing with cold malice. Rhys didn't hesitate. She motioned for her team to advance. "Move, move, move," she shouted, leading the charge. "We push forward. We destroy their command center. That's our objective. Nothing else matters." The Gyrek warriors were fast, their movements like fluid shadows as they rushed to meet the humans head-on. Their weapons crackled with energy, but Reese's team was well prepared. They fought with everything they had, their training and willpower outmatching the Gyrek's raw power. Every step forward was a battle, but with every Gyrek that fell, Reese's resolve grew stronger. In the distance, the control center loomed, heavily guarded but vulnerable. This was it, the heart of the Gyrek's operation. Reese had no doubt that destroying it would cripple their entire fleet, but she also knew that getting to it would require everything they had. "We're almost there," Reese said, gritting her teeth as she fired a volley at a group of advancing Gyrek. "Keep pushing." For Earth, the battle inside the Gyrek flagship was like nothing Reese had ever experienced. The air was thick with smoke and the sharp, acrid smell of burning metal. The clang of weaponry, the screech of alien armor, and the grunts of her own team filled the corridors as they advanced. Each room they cleared, each Gyrek warrior they felled, seemed to echo the growing intensity of their mission. But the Gyrek weren't giving up easily. "We're too slow," Mara panted as she fired a burst into a Gyrek soldier that had leaped from the shadows. "They're reinforcing from all directions. We need to move faster." Reese wiped the sweat from her brow, her breathing steady despite the chaos around them. "We push forward, Mara. This ship's heart is close. We take down the command center, and it's over." The thought of what they were about to do spurred her forward. They had no time to waste. If they couldn't cripple the flagship's command structure, the entire fleet would regroup and counterattack. Earth's fate rested in their hands. The team pressed on, moving through narrow, winding corridors. The Gyrek's defenses were relentless, and the closer they got to the heart of the ship, the fiercer the resistance became. Reese didn't flinch. This was their only chance, the only way Earth had any hope of surviving. Ahead of them, a massive blast door loomed. Its surface was covered in strange alien symbols, but the glow of energy running across it told Reese everything she needed to know. This was it, the command center. Behind that door was the Gyrek's brain, the control center of their entire invasion force. If they destroyed it, the fleet would scatter. The Gyrek, so confident in their technological superiority, had no contingency for a direct assault. They had underestimated humanity. "Prepare explosives," Reese barked. She motioned to her team, who immediately began setting up charges along the base of the door. The Gyrek were getting smarter, and it wouldn't be long before they launched a full counterattack. They had no choice but to act quickly. As the timer ticked down, Reese felt the familiar tension in her gut. She had faced countless battles, but this one felt different. This wasn't just about victory or defeat. This was about survival, humanity's survival. For too long, Earth had been seen as insignificant, fragile. They were about to show the galaxy that it had underestimated humanity. "Charges set," Mara said, her voice steady. "Get ready," Reese replied, her heart pounding in her chest. The timer counted down. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. The explosion rocked the ship, sending a violent tremor through the corridors. The door buckled, and then exploded outward in a burst of sparks and debris. Reese didn't hesitate. She led her team through the smoking wreckage and into the command center. Inside, the room was vast, filled with alien technology that hummed with power. At the center of it all stood a massive console, its surface etched with incomprehensible symbols. A group of Gyrek commanders stood in front of it, their eyes locking onto Reese with a deadly glare. These were the architects of the invasion, the ones who had set this plan in motion. And now, they would pay. "Fire at will," Reese shouted. The room erupted into chaos. Gunfire lit up the darkened space, and the Gyrek commanders retaliated, their weapons crackling with energy. But they were no match for the human resolve that had fueled this fight. One by one, the Gyrek commanders fell, their bodies hitting the floor with sickening thuds. Reese moved with precision, her weapon never wavering, her eyes fixed on the central console. "We need to destroy that control system now," Mara shouted as she laid down suppressing fire. Reese didn't hesitate. She sprinted across the room, dodging energy blasts, and reached the console. With a sharp swipe, she activated the self-destruct sequence, her fingers flying across the ancient controls. The system hummed to life, the countdown beginning. "We're done here," Reese shouted. "Let's move." The countdown blared in the command center, its mechanical voice echoing like a death knell. Reese's pulse pounded in her ears as she sprinted toward the exit. The Gyrek flagship was coming apart around them. The self-destruct sequence had been initiated. If they didn't make it out now, they would all perish with the ship. The mission, their fight, everything they had sacrificed, would end in a fiery death. "Move, move, move," Reese shouted, her voice sharp as she led her team back toward the blast doors, which were now slowly sliding open. Behind them, the command center was already beginning to tremble, the walls groaning as systems began to overload. She could feel the tremors through the floor. Whatever the Gyrek had relied on to hold their power in place was crumbling. The very ship they had built to conquer the galaxy was now turning into their tomb. The team fought their way out, dodging collapsing beams and falling debris. Their path back to the landing craft was chaotic, the corridors shaking violently with each passing second. The Gyrek were regrouping, but it was too late. Reese had already delivered the final blow. Their command structure had been obliterated, their fleet already starting to break apart. The heart of their invasion had been severed. "Stay close," Mara yelled, her voice barely audible over the roar of collapsing metal. As they neared the landing craft, Reese dared to look back at the ship's rapidly disintegrating core. The Gyrek's reign of terror was finally coming to an end. The self-destruct countdown was nearing its final seconds. "We've got 20 seconds, Reese said, urgency in her voice. "Go. Now." The team piled into the landing craft, and Reese slammed the door shut. The craft's engines roared to life, its thrusters flaring brightly as it shot upward into the chaos of the flagship's final moments. They could see the massive ship's hull shudder and crack as energy bursts shot out in every direction, fire and debris streaming into the atmosphere behind them. Just as they cleared the flagship's shattered remains, the Gyrek ship exploded in a brilliant burst of light, sending shockwaves through the surrounding space. The force of the blast rattled the landing craft, but Reese held her ground, her hand steady on the controls. She pushed the ship forward, away from the explosion's radius, and looked down at the burning remnants of the Gyrek fleet, scattering like a disjointed swarm. Did we really do it?" Mara asked, her voice breathless. Reese exhaled sharply, the weight of their success settling in. The threat was over. The Gyrek were defeated. Earth was saved. She nodded slowly, her voice hoarse but resolute. "We did," she said, a faint smile breaking through the exhaustion. "We've won. Humanity has survived." As they watched the remnants of the Gyrek fleet flicker and fade in the distance, the magnitude of their victory began to sink in. The galaxy had just witnessed something extraordinary. A species thought to be weak, insignificant, had overcome an enemy that had crushed entire civilizations before them. The Gyrek had underestimated humanity's resolve. They had underestimated Earth. Reese looked out at the vast, silent expanse of space beyond, her mind racing with the possibilities. Earth had just proven that it was capable of so much more than anyone had ever imagined. They had not only fought back, they had turned the tide of an intergalactic war. Humanity had shown that it would not be subjugated. Not now. Not ever. "We need to get back to Earth," Reese said, her voice quiet but filled with a deep, resolute strength. "There's so much we need to do, so much we need to rebuild." Mara nodded, looking out at the expanse of stars ahead. "It's not over, is it?" "No," Reese replied, her eyes narrowing with quiet determination. "This is just the beginning. We've proven ourselves, and now, the galaxy will know what humanity is capable of." With a final glance toward the burning remnants of the Gyrek fleet, Reese turned the landing craft toward home. Earth awaited them. A new chapter was about to begin.